Sly Media TV, building bridges.
I started voting in 1990. I never missed any election. Right? That I voted 1990, 1995 9 per referendum 9 2009 2008 9 2013 9 2018 9 but yes, what else on elections like 2023. What is the election? I'm sorry, the election. Vabereki vesa vano decide the future. Vane vana vane chi. Pane my youthful guys, my youthful girls vana kuvota. Munoaitire chine chi. Monza ballot paper na 3 o'clock. The election rudzi. Atiopara to usiku here. We are not in a wedge of darkness. Tine light usiku esofana 7 kusvika na 7. Motiunza na 3 o'clock. Zvinove election. It's the same election. Kana musati election musati taurire. Tokoramba takamendera the status quo. Full stop.
Oyo anondidanga uye pano ndatindavhotera Nelson Chamisa wana rega Nelson Chamisa ndiye wandavhotera iyeyo number every now and then I always vote for him. Ngochani machikundayo amene vanoitwa ngochani nagarwe vari kuitwa ngochani nagarwe vari kuoneswa nhameno kumusana musana yakubuda kujoku nemukongoro wagarwe ndavhotera Nelson Chamisa ndewandavhotera iyeyo Nelson Chamisa Nelson uya pano naiwe uya pano nai Nelson ndiye boyfriend yangu wherever I go until I die.
We welcome you all to this press briefing, which is an extraordinary, urgent press briefing, an election watch update on today, polling day. Without further ado, I'm going to defer to our presidential chief election agent, who's going to first address us, and then we'll see what follows from there. Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Now, as we promised earlier on when we met in the morning, we promised that we will be giving you updates on the ongoing election as reports coming from all over the country flow into our offices. The first thing to do perhaps is just to convey the message from the President that he appreciates the resilience that has been showed by the Zimbabwean public who, despite delays and hindrances, they have remained resolute that they will not go home without casting their ballots and expressing their will through the right to exercise to vote. Now, despite the frustrations of being made to wait in queues for long hours, not knowing when they will vote, the majority have chosen to stay put and exercise their democratic right. The second issue that we want to highlight this afternoon, or evening rather, is to bring to you the various concerns that have arisen throughout the day as we were receiving reports. Now, we are still receiving these reports, but one of the most significant reports we continue to receive is that as at 3 p.m. this afternoon, some polling stations in Harare, particularly Ward 16, in Warren Park, Ward 15, Budiriro, Ward 33, the voting had not yet started. We were receiving calls from the candidates there, worried whether the ballot is still going to continue, whether voting is still going to continue. What we have done is that we do not hurry and come here to address you about our concerns. The first thing that we do is that we approach ZEC and engage ZEC and seek explanations regarding the current defect that we are experiencing. I can confirm that I have been to ZEC in the morning. I've been there seeking explanations. Oh, thank you. I see that observers also just coming in to observe this press conference. So, like I was saying, we have gone to ZEC and sought clarity on the delays that have been experienced in the conveyance of ballot papers, especially for the local authority elections, to the various polling stations. Unfortunately, we have not been able to obtain satisfactory explanations for those delays. Now, the problem that we have is that you will recall that on the 18th of August 2023, if I'm not mistaken, ZEC issued a publication that they had printed ballot papers, and they specified the number of ballot papers that had been printed and that they were ready to be distributed. Now, the question to be asked is, why have those ballot papers not found their way to the respective polling stations on time to enable the electorate to vote on time within the anticipated time frames? That explanation is not forthcoming. Of course, we are all aware that in terms of the law, people have an opportunity to vote within 12 hours of voting starting, which might mean that those who started voting at 2 might have to vote up to 2 a.m. in the morning. So they have that leeway to vote. This is why we have insisted that our members who have soldiered on, stayed at the polling stations to have the opportunity to vote, must stay there, must be able to exercise their right to vote. And so this is what has been transpiring, and these explanations have not come. And it is strange, the only body that can clarify that issue is obviously ZEC. And before we obtain such clarification from ZEC, everyone can only wonder what is happening. So this is not only happening in Harare. We've been receiving calls from Penalonga, we've been receiving calls from Manicaland of the issue of the delayed vote. Of course, in Bulawayo there were delays, but they started voting, some early, some at 10, and some much later on. But it is important for us to say, it is very critical for ZEC to be able to come to the public and indicate why the voting has been delayed in these places. The biggest mandate of ZEC is transparency. Transparency is making information available and telling the public what is happening. I'm made to understand that a presser was issued earlier on by the ZEC officials, but at this stage as a party, we are not satisfied with the explanation. And certainly you may not be surprised that some people have been disenfranchised, especially those from the CCC strongholds, the metropolitan parts of the country, who should have been able to vote by now. We should have been starting to think about vote counting by now, but that has not yet happened. So we are really worried about this. The other worry, the other concern that has arisen is that in some parts, particularly Chikanga, Murao, our polling station, we received information that the ballot papers for the presidential vote were not sufficient. Now, it begs the question, how is it possible? Because these ballots, when they are sent out on the basis of the registered voters of the polling station. So how is it possible that ballot papers can be said to be insufficient? So that is another issue that we are flagging to the public. Also important is that I'm sure you are all now aware, social media is awash with the reports of the exit poll desks that are all over, and you probably know who has been manning those exit poll desks. These are a concern because to us they constitute voter intimidation, and they are a hindrance to the exercise of the free will to vote. So this is a concern which is really worrying us as a party. But after all is said and done, we are still insisting that our people have done well to remain at their polling stations, to remain strong and steadfast, wishing to cast their ballots. Of course, there have been reports of violence with visuals coming from all over the country of people who have been attacked. We have the situation of one of the honorable members, a candidate from Zarabani, Honorable Wellington Gweru. He was attacked this afternoon. As we were coming to this presser, he was actually at the police station making a report. You are all also aware of the situation involving one of the candidates, Tongai Jake from Bindura, where there was a petrol bomb, and that an infant was harmed and is currently in hospital. So these are some of the issues that have so far arisen. There are multiple issues. We cannot exhaust them at this conference. All we need to do is to alert the public, to alert the media, to alert the observers, so that they are watchful as they go about their business in this election. Perhaps also just to indicate that we have received reports from other parts of the country where the level of assisted voters is quite high. In one of the places, the report I received was that assisted voters are about 90%. This is also worrying. Some of these details are details that would require members of the media to verify, would require observers to verify, would require ZEC to bring to our attention, because the easiest thing for ZEC is to be able to clarify issues even where they are not clear. Our purpose here is not to mislead and misinform the public. Our purpose here is to come and place issues before you so that those who care, those who have the capacity to go about as members of the media, as members of the observer missions, they can also go and verify on their own. But more importantly, that ZEC should be able to clarify any issues and dispel any suspicions that might exist in the minds of the voting public, as well as those that are observing these elections. So for now, I would say that these are some of the issues that we have. There are multiple issues that have arisen. Reports are still coming in. So we'll keep you updated. We'll keep coming to you. If you find anything also that requires our attention as a political party, please bring it to our attention. It is absolutely important in this watershed election for us to all put our heads in the same direction and make sure that we stand for a democratic dispensation that has got the principles that are enshrined in the Constitution all realized, enforced, and recognized. For now, I thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the press. I'll just make a few additions with respect to what is transpiring today and also what has been encountered by the people of Zimbabwe. Basically, I'll talk about mainly the challenges that we experienced, particularly issues around the ballot paper. We noted with concern as the CCC the delays in the provision of the ballot papers to the respective constituencies and wards, and due to that, we had seen delays in terms of the starting times for the voting. Of course, we had instances where voting started on time, like in Harare Central, for example, it started around 7 a.m. and Harare East, it started on time. But then we have had cases where in some instances, the starting time was around 9:30 or 10 o'clock thereabout, or even after 2 p.m. and just as well in Glenview North, the voting has just started at around 4:30 p.m. So those are some of the concerns that we noted, the delays, and unfortunately, the delay is not only in Harare also. We have a situation where in Manicaland, at around 12 midday, only about 4 out of 26 constituencies had started the voting process. And also in Bulawayo, I'm sure you noted the concerns about, with regards to Bulawayo, the ballot paper for council candidates, which had serious errors, grave errors, and due to that, voting started very late in most of the wards in Bulawayo. For example, Bulawayo Central started at around 11 a.m. Same applies to Bulawayo North, Bulawayo South. Entumbane and Njube started at 12:15 midday. Popoma Mzilikazi 11 a.m. Kulumane 11 a.m. Pelandaba 11 a.m. and Pomola started very late at 2:30 p.m. And those were the concerns that we noted. And however, like what the previous speaker said, we really salute the people of Zimbabwe because they have stood resilient and there are some of them, they are still there waiting for the starting times. They are still there waiting for them to cast their votes. And what we noted in this regard is there is a 12-hour time frame allowable for voting. And we are, as the CCC, we are keeping watch of the times that the voting process started, and we expect ZEC to adhere to the 12-hour prescribed time frame. If voting started, say, at 2:30, then we expect the voting to stop at 2:30 a.m. So basically, this is where we are in terms of the starting times, and I will defer the proceedings to the other speakers. I thank you.
Sly Media TV, building bridges.